What if I told you the Great Wall of China isn't the longest wall ever built? And what if the greatest ancient earthwork, the one that used 100 times more material than the Great Pyramid of Cheops, was not in Egypt, but in Africa? It sounds unbelievable, right? It's a truth that has been almost completely erased from history. The story we are about to uncover is about a vanished wonder. It's the story of an empire and its great walls, a forgotten monument so immense it was once the rival of any structure on Earth. This isn't just a tale of old stones and dirt. It's a story of incredible ingenuity, of a civilization that built a fortress that protected its people for centuries. It's the story of how that fortress fell, not to a mighty army in a grand battle, but to a series of fateful events and a tragic act of colonial violence that has left its legacy barely a whisper in the modern world. Stick with me, because once you hear what happened, you'll never look at history the same way again. Long before Europe even considered building its grandest castles, the people of the Benin Kingdom, in what is now Nigeria, were already masters of earth and engineering. This wasn't a quick project. The construction of the walls, known as the Aya in the local Edo language, was a process that began as early as 800 AD and continued for over 600 years, reaching completion around 1460 AD. To understand how truly epic this project was, you have to picture the scale. This wasn't a single wall like the one in China. It was a massive network of over 500 interconnected settlement boundaries. A mosaic of walls and moats that stretched far beyond the capital city itself. The engineering was as clever as it was colossal. The system was a ditch and dike structure. You'd dig a massive ditch to create a moat. And then you would take all that excavated earth and pile it up to form a towering rampart or wall right behind it. This wasn't done with machines, of course. This was all the result of pure, raw human effort. Imagine millions of people digging and hauling dirt for centuries. The effort was so immense that one expert estimated it took an incredible 150 million hours of digging to build. The result was a city protected by walls that in some places stood up to 20 meters, or 66 feet tall. Now for the part that will truly blow your mind. The entire system of walls and moats spanned an estimated 16,000 kilometers, or about 9,900 miles in total. It enclosed an area of roughly 6,500 square kilometers, protecting the capital of Benin City and over 500 villages and communities in a vast network of defenses. For context, the entire Great Wall of China is estimated to be around 4,000 kilometers long when you look at its main continuous sections, not including all the branches. That makes the walls of Benin a stunning 4 times longer than the Great Wall of China. Fact that even a Dutch writer named Ulfert Dapper noted back in 1668. And if that wasn't enough, it has also been claimed that the project consumed 100 times more material than the Great Pyramid of Cheops. This isn't a small difference, it's a monumental one. It's why the Guinness Book of World Records in 1974 acknowledged the walls of Benin City as the most extensive earthwork ever constructed by human hands. The walls were an ingenious defensive system. The moats were heavily guarded around the clock by Benin soldiers. The steep banks of the ramparts were engineered so that any invaders trying to climb them could be buried in sand avalanches or get their weapons jammed with loose earth. The high walls meant that attackers were nothing more than easy targets for the Benin soldiers' spears and poisoned arrows. To get into the city, you had to pass through one of 9 heavily guarded gates. The security was so tight, and the control over who entered and left the city was so absolute, that it contributed to a profound sense of safety for the people who lived there. The Benin Kingdom was famously so secure that a Portuguese captain named Lorenzo Pinto, visiting in 1674, noted that the citizens didn't even bother with doors on their houses because theft was almost unheard of. But perhaps the most profound purpose of these walls was their ability to keep out a specific kind of invader. At the height of the transatlantic slave trade, the Benin walls stood as a literal shield against European slavers. The fortified access points, combined with the practice of marking citizens with unique tribal marks, made it nearly impossible for European slave traders to raid the city, or for any Ido person to be enslaved and sent across the Atlantic. It was an act of architectural defiance that saved countless lives, a testament to the Ido people's fierce independence and their commitment to protecting their own. But a storm was gathering on the horizon. By the late 19th century, the British Empire was aggressively expanding its colonial reach across Africa. The Benin Kingdom, led by the powerful Aba king at the time, Aba Oven Ramwan, remained a sovereign state, controlling its own trade and resources. This was a huge problem for the British, particularly the Niger Coast Protectorate and British merchants who wanted to get their hands on the region's rich palm oil and other goods. For years they had been trying to negotiate a treaty to open up trade, but the OBA's strict control was a barrier. So in January 1897, a British party led by acting Consul General James Phillips set out for Benin City. The OBA had sent them a message to delay their visit, as they were in the middle of a sacred annual ritual in a time of seclusion. But Phillips ignored the warning, thinking he could force the issue. His expedition was ambushed at Ugbine village, and Phillips and most of his party were killed. This event, which British newspapers immediately labeled as the Benin Massacre, became the perfect excuse for a military response. But the so-called massacre wasn't the reason for the British invasion. It was the justification for an attack they had been planning for a long time. The British wanted to break the OBA's power and seize economic control of the kingdom. The attack on Phillips's party, which was an act committed by some chiefs against the OBA's wishes, simply provided the perfect cover story. The true motive was never about justice for the dead. It was about resources and control. In February 1897, Rear Admiral Harry Rawson led a punitive expedition of 1,200 British men, armed with modern machine guns and rocket launchers, against the ancient kingdom. The Benin soldiers fought fiercely, but they were no match for the firepower of the British forces. In the end, the British overwhelmed the city's defenses, captured Benin City, and systematically destroyed it. They burned buildings and homes, including the famous royal palace, and desecrated sacred sites. And during their brutal conquest, they didn't just burn the city, they specifically damaged the ancient walls and moats with earth-shaking bombings to break the power of the kingdom and its fortifications. They also looted thousands of priceless artifacts, the famous Benin Bronzes, carrying them off to museums and private collections across Europe and America. The 1897 expedition was the beginning of the end for the walls. The initial destruction was devastating, but the years that followed were even more tragic. Today, barely any trace of the Great Walls of Benin exists. Much like the empire they once protected, the walls have been lost to time and a painful neglect. Urban expansion has swallowed up large sections of the earthworks, with residential and commercial buildings built right on top of them. Land disputes among villages have made preservation efforts complicated, and in many places, the moats have been degraded by drainage projects or turned into makeshift dumping grounds for city refuse. It's a sad and heartbreaking ending for a monument that was once considered a wonder of the world. There are, however, a few small signs of hope. In 1961, the moats and walls were granted some level of government protection. And in 1995, the Benin Moat, along with Sungbo's Aredo, was added to UNESCO's tentative list of World Heritage Sites. The recognition is a start, but it's still awaiting official recognition. And the walls themselves are in desperate need of a comprehensive rescue plan. Organizations like the Benin Moat Foundation are working to preserve what little remains. But they face an uphill battle against the forces of time, urbanization, and a general lack of awareness about the significance of this magnificent site. So what do we do with this forgotten history? The walls of Benin were more than just a defensive structure. They were a monument to African ingenuity, urban planning, and resilience. Their near-total disappearance is a powerful reminder of how colonialism not only stole artifacts, but also physically erased the evidence of a sophisticated and advanced civilization. It's a profound loss of cultural heritage, a physical scar on the landscape that speaks volumes about a history we were never taught. But remembering their story is the first step toward reclaiming it. It's about more than a wall. It's about a legacy that deserves to be seen, remembered, and celebrated. If this story opened your eyes, please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. And if you're ready for more, click the video on your screen right now, where we dive even deeper into the history of the Benin Kingdom and its lost treasures.